Director, thank you so much for sticking with us. So you were born in El Paso, but you spent a chunk of time in your teen years in Ciudad Juarez and later worked for the Immigration Naturalization Services, a predecessor to ICE. You're now the top public safety officer in an immigrant-friendly city. How does your history inform how you're going to approach working with immigrant communities here in Albuquerque?
So my family's history is that of being immigrants, right? We immigrated to the United States when my grandfather married my grandmother. Literally, he was a U.S. citizen born in Beaumont, Texas, of all places. But he lived his whole life in Mexico as well. That's where he met my grandmother. And eventually he brought everyone. He worked for the railroad and retired from the railroad. As far as I've known him, he's been retired. Obviously, he's passed away by now. But so that was always our story. When I started working with immigration was kind of on a whim. I was a school teacher at the time.
Yeah, what took you there?
It was just an application that someone gave me one day and said, here, look, you can fax it in. Probably don't even know what a fax is, but you could fax it in. It was a one-pager, and all they really wanted to know was overall, what was my grade point average? So I was like, sure. Submitted it, and really didn't even think about it. Didn't really think about the job. Didn't really even think about the mission. I never even had thought about law enforcement altogether. So for us, it was like, yeah, let's try it, right? We're just recently married, literally 1 year into our marriage, and said, let's try it, see where it takes us. And the first offer they offered was San Francisco. I'm a big 49er fan, so he said, sure, let's go do that. I really didn't know what I was getting into until I was in the job after the academy in San Francisco.
Once you figured out what you had gotten yourself into, did it align with your values as someone of the family that you're from?
It's one of those things. It's yes on doing the right thing. And there's always people that are coming into our country that are trying to get away from something they've done in their country. And therefore, you don't want them doing those things in our country. So that part of it was pretty easy, kind of getting rid of the criminals. And then those individuals that are trying to come here and doing things that you wouldn't want them to be doing, crimes involving moral turpitude and those types of things. You want these people out of our country. So that part I can relate to, doing the right thing. The immigrant population that's coming here to do what our family did, just to advance themselves, to do the right thing for themselves so that their families can actually have a better life, whether it's in the United States or in their country where they're coming from. That I could relate to because that was my story. But the other mission, especially when we moved back to El Paso, so I actually worked at the Port of Entry here in El Paso, that's when it all changed for me. And just it didn't align with my values anymore. I could continue doing the right thing, but it wasn't for the right reasons anymore. Because I kind of could see that most of the people that were just coming in were just coming, working hard, doing the work that most people didn't even want to do. And in most cases, even paying taxes. And they're living a life of fear, right? Because they were always kind of in fear that someone was going to find out that they weren't supposed to be here and they were going to be deported. I didn't want to be that person anymore. Okay. So it was time to switch. And then that was during the time that 9/11 happened. I saw a bigger mission, right? Go fight terrorism. Go fight to keep our country safe. So that's when I switched to the FBI.
Well, District Attorney Sam Bregman, who's also running for governor, he wrote a letter to the local head of ICE saying that he would prosecute ICE agents who detain people without legal justification. If asked, would you be okay with an Albuquerque police officer arresting an ICE agent?
So I know Bregman, he's a big personality, and he probably means every single word that he put in there as well. And I think he's very concerned and focused on making sure that our people are not being subjected to things that they're not supposed to be subjected to, especially those that are trying to do the right thing. Our police officers are not federal officers. We uphold state, local, and we work with our federal partners. Federal partners have a role. Their role is to do those things that they're doing, whether it's here in our place or not. But it's not APD's role to do that.
If the local DA did prosecute an ICE agent and called for their arrest, would you be comfortable with APD executing that?
If there's an arrest warrant that's in place and it's legally obtained and legally in our system to do, then obviously we're always going to uphold the law.
Okay. Now, in addition to the police, you'll oversee Albuquerque's fire rescue and the community safety department. How does your longtime career at the FBI prepare you to oversee first responders in this way?
So the FBI is considered in the line of first responders, but we're always taking a back seat because we're always looking for federal nexus, and sometimes that needs time to build itself out. But you're working in the same capacities. You know, especially in the last, I would say the last decade, the FBI was really looking at providing victim services to individuals to make sure that you're providing the services that people need before, during, and after an investigation. So now having the opportunity to kind of oversee all of those things and all those components that are always tied closely together, but now having the one mission, that's an exciting and challenging place to be, because that's exactly what we should always be doing.
So having a background in the FBI doesn't align you more with the policing that APD is doing compared to fire rescue or community safety?
No, because I mean, the role of any department, especially one that covers a big city, or in our case, when I was working in the FBI, the state, you're consumed with all these different roles all at the same time, and you got to make sure that you know what is the best way to triage. But in this case, yeah, we're going to continue to triage, but at the same time do it in a level that's collective, and that we're kind of pushing that mission forward as one team.
Yeah, so that collective coordination, why is coordination between these departments? Some people may see them as disparate. So why is coordination needed?
Well, it's needed because when you call for a service, when you call 911, you might be calling because you need police to be dispatched. You might be calling because you need fire and rescue to be dispatched. You might just have someone that's in crisis and needs that kind of attention and focus. What you don't need is 3 people showing up. What you need is just the service that you need at the time. You're appreciative that people want to show up, but if what you needed is someone to help and be able to talk someone off a ledge, so to speak, then you need those services from ACS. You don't need necessarily a police officer there. So it's one of those things that we can go ahead and make sure that our services are being used appropriately and being triaged like they should be, and providing the services that our community needs at that moment, and not just all the services that could be used elsewhere during that same time.
And without your role, was that coordination falling short?
The coordination was, again, we were having that triage that wasn't there, and we're going to work on fixing that so that we make sure that you're getting the appropriate services, and we're not going ahead and overtax our sworn and trained officers, so they can be doing other things at the same time.
You mentioned that it's not always going to be appropriate for APD to be the responding department. Maybe ACS is who needs to go out there. So homelessness and addiction are concerns top among a lot of Albuquerque residents' lists. Sure. The mayor has said the city can't arrest its way out of that problem. How does his approach align with your values?
No, and it's right in line, because it's one of those things that you have to look at all these things as unique in themselves, and there is not the one solution. And yes, you can arrest your way out of a problem. In this case, you need to provide the resources that people need to be able to kind of get themselves back on their feet and be good citizens back in our communities, and that's what our goal is. So we need to make sure that we're providing the resources that they need, and the appropriate resources, so that we can move as one.
Okay. The mayor's rhetoric doesn't seem to align with some of the data. According to a recent ProPublica report, homelessness arrests for issues related to homelessness have skyrocketed. The population of people classified as homeless at the Metropolitan Detention Center at the county jail is up way high, almost half of the population. So is the city indeed trying to arrest its way out of this problem?
No, not at all. But it's, we're also, let's be real as well. If someone's committing a crime at that moment, then you don't want that person to be in that community anymore. And whether they're housed or unhoused, actions need to be taken.
But some of these crimes are, blocking a sidewalk, public camping, not necessarily violent crimes or burglary or anything like that.
No, but even right before I came here, we're looking at policies and things that we can put in place so that we can give other solutions and other venues and avenues so that we can provide resources without having to arrest people.
Would you like to see those arrests drop?
Yes, you definitely want to make sure that people are getting what they need so that they can continue to be a positive citizen in our community. So yes, you want to make sure that they're getting the resources they need to continue to move forward. And those resources aren't necessarily going to be found within a jail cell.
And now you aren't officially confirmed in the role. The Albuquerque City Council this week did introduce your appointment, but it won't be discussed until the April 20th meeting, their next meeting. What do you expect out of that confirmation process?
It's a lot of tough questions, right? Not just about what I plan to be doing in this role, but maybe what I've done in my past role and how I see those kind of intersecting. And I welcome that because that's what our community wants to know. I'm sure they got the same questions, right? So yes, I welcome them.
Okay, great. Director Bohanda, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.